there anything that you wish you had done? I mean, you can't do it now.
How much time do we have?
Well, we got about 5 minutes.
There are many things I wish I had done.
Okay, what's the first thing that springs to mind?
More education. I loved school and would like to go back, even now.
Well, you have a doctorate. That's not enough.
Well, in terms of degrees on a wall, maybe. In terms of education, no.
Oh, right.
I'm going to school next week in Chicago. I think one of the joys of thinking about life going on is the possibility of continuing to learn. Go back to the Old Testament. They lived 700 years. How much could you accumulate? How many degrees could you get? How many fields could you study? How many languages could you learn if you knew you had 700 years? Knowing that, I have a limited amount of time, I'd love to go back to school, but I have to limit that.
Are you a Democrat or a Republican?
Neither.
Why? You're an independent.
Very much so. Because I think that politics is inherently divisive, and that I should work to bring agreement. What can we agree to as a political body that is best for everyone? And I think politics, especially in the U.S., has become totally polarized. And we can't even talk to each other. And it's become mudslinging, and it's become very vindictive. And I don't really want to be part of either party. I tend to be, obviously, liberals would consider me very conservative. Conservatives would probably consider me to be
Liberal. So that's a good place to be.
I hope so.
Would you say you have a defining scripture in your life? A verse or two, or a paragraph, or a chapter, or even a book, or a scriptural concept even, that has really shaped you?
I think Psalm 73 is one of those that I mentioned, where it says very simply, and I came into the sanctuary of the Lord, and then I understood. And all the anomalies of life, all the things that don't make sense, all the things that don't add up. Ultimately, Asaph says, I looked at the righteous, I looked at the wicked, and shalom was not there in their lives, and it should have been, and these people seem to prosper, and how do I sort all this out? He said, and then I came into the sanctuary of the Lord, and it all made sense. And it's in God's presence and in the knowledge of His will that these things begin to sort themselves out.
In Exodus 20, we have the essential DNA of the Judeo-Christian ethic in the Ten Commandments. After this remarkable event of Moses revealing these things to the people of Israel, it says in the 21st verse, he went back into the thick darkness where God dwelt. And I checked it out in the Hebrew to make sure that, I had it right. It is, the thick darkness. Does God dwell in the darkness?
Well, I think we have a lot of apparently conflicting metaphors. God exists in the light, and no one can approach it. God exists in darkness in the sense that God exists in mystery.
Right.
And there is so much we do not comprehend about Him, and cannot. We're finite.
Yeah.
I think of a story that's in the book about the guy who comes home to his apartment in New York City, and he finds that his locked apartment, as he enters in, that the area rug from his living room is wadded up and stuffed in the kitchen sink. And as the story unfolds, he discovers that what has happened is that his neighbor had a plumbing problem. They called in the supervisor, they called in a plumber, they ran a snake into this guy's plumbing system. It actually came out next door in his apartment went into the living room, hooked onto an area rug, and now they were trying to pull this snake back through the sink. And it's a fascinating story, but ultimately there's a metaphor there, and that is we can ask some questions about God, and we latch onto things that simply will not fit through our finite plumbing. Yeah. The questions are so big, and our minds are so small, we really can't comprehend them all.
Dr. Bob Wenz has been our guest these last 3 days, and you have listened to some wisdom and reflection from a man who has a terminal illness. I really appreciate the fact you've come, Bob, and I want to thank you personally for doing it.
My great pleasure.
Your book is called Navigating Your Perfect Storm, and I think after hearing Dr. Wenz, you're going to want his book. Go to your favorite bookstore, and if they don't have it, order it. It's published by Biblica. Okay, Biblica. Navigating a Perfect Storm. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
We'll be back.